Welcome back to another episode of Home Court Health. I am your host, Tom Foolery, and today is as much a lesson in language as it is a brief commentary on current events. And even current events is a bit of a charged and misleading moniker because so much of what is delivered to us via news, whether it's mainstream news or alternative news, whatever is then described as the hot button topic of the day is usually something that has already happened. So it's only current insofar as that we give it our energy, our charge, and our that's the like an electrical current. Same thing with our currency. The energy that we give to money or ascribe to money is a lot of it is just our belief in it, and that our attention and obsession goes into that. And I'm reminded of the Rene Descartes quote that said, "We do not describe the world we see the world that we can describe." So much of news and television is, yes, it's distraction, and I'm going to speak about this today in terms of the show and the theatrics, and so much of that verbiage that is used in truth-telling communities, and I think it's becoming certainly more a part of our collective jargon and colloquialisms for sure, because when we take this quote, we do not describe the world we see. We see the world we can describe. So a lot of that goes into our vision, and if we don't know what we're looking at, we really don't have words for it, which is, I think, one of the beautiful mysteries of our world, for as much as we think we know. If we were truly confronted with something that we did not know what it was, if it didn't have a name. I mean, that's what's been said in the lore, in the myth telling of the American Indians when they first saw ships coming, the European ships. When you don't have a word for it, you might even say monster or demon or something that is somewhere rooted in your imagination, and you have to pull from that to guesstimate what it is that might be coming at you. And I bring that up to say because, yes, there is a distraction element as well for whatever's in the news. I mean, even if it's something fairly harmless or insignificant as Super Bowl halftime show or anything like that. And even still, this is where we get into the tropes that I hear in the truthosphere of things like it's all fake, or it's all a show, and it's all theater. It's very much a yes and, because what I gleaned from watching the show The Newsroom on HBO, which I think was exceptionally well done. It's very well acted, and it's compelling. And I saw that at a time. I think it's it might be from one of the makers of The West Wing, which I had appreciation for as well when I was in that world of thinking that the people involved in politics were so much more brilliant and capable and skilled and, dare I say, even ethical. And of course those are characters. They're based on real people. By the second time I watched The West Wing, I was fairly disgust is not a trait that I'm looking to embrace. I was just much more critical of what was going on, the manipulation, the unethical behavior, the deception. I mean, things that are now what I consider to be not even symptomatic, just these are the features of the political world. And the Newsroom is somewhat similar. I don't think it's quite as degenerate in terms of how it's displayed as the characters involved and who is bringing the news to you. The reason I bring that up is because what I remember distinctly from that, even though it was dramatized, is the impression that before the news is delivered, it is doctored, it is edited, it is curated, it's certainly researched as well. However far removed we are from primary sources and secondary sources, tertiary sources, etc. I mean, we're usually several degrees by the time we receive news. That it really is to tell a story. It's mostly storytelling, and that's where the wizardry of it all comes in. Is that there are puppet masters manipulating the strings of whatever dance is being done on the screen or behind the screen. I've brought up this image before. I mean, even if you just take the zoom in on my face, if you're watching this on video, what you cannot see is everything around me, everything in front of me potentially, what goes on when you can't see my hands, what's going on beneath the desk. And it's similar to a slideshow, so, and this is the imagery I brought up before, is when you shove the screen in people's faces, they cannot see the slide deck being changed and moved and slides being taken out and pulled and put in different order. And that really is the nature of our present reality. And this is really, and I don't feel like this is going to be a very long podcast today, just because my energy and interest is elsewhere. That is to say, I'd like to keep this fairly succinct so that you can develop your own response to this. You can sit with this and digest it in your own time, because I think in light of the release of the Epstein files, and of course there's been so much melodrama going on around that for a while now, and even before that, I mean, I was privy to the fact, I would say, that so many, I will say so many, and this is where we're getting into absolute language and avoiding hyperbole, because I cannot say all the world elites are pedophiles, all the world elites are degenerates. And I should get away from using the word elite, because the prefix L is in reference to God. So these people are clearly not closer to God. They may think they are by the practices of their black and sex magic and how they prey upon the energy of their victims, be they children or just very youthful people, or even the massive energy that they can pull from the population at large. And so by calling them the elite is not only not true, it's to give them too much credit. And I'll end with my point on that today, is we give them too much credit, because so I was aware that many of the most powerful people in the world in recent memory, and certainly from generations bygone, were involved in this predatory, ritualistic practice of harvesting the sexual energy, as well as the life force energy, as well as sometimes the physical energy, through death and dissection of bodies. And I mean, all this very grim and grotesque information that is now coming out of the shadow into the light. And the truth is always good. Please believe that. Please trust that the truth, however, even though it seems sinister because of what was perpetrated by these people and whatever demonic possessions that they may be subject to. So we can hold the space for them that they know not what they do. I mean, that really is the nature of sin, is even if it is deliberate in a way, I don't know if people, when they're in the throes of these truly evil and malevolent deeds, and this is not an out, this is not an excuse, I'm just saying that there's a reason why we can still have grace for people, is maybe they are possessed, maybe they were deluded or diverted on their path into thinking that this really was the way for them to behave and to live. And I have love for people, and I can forgive people. Behaviors are really what we're able to judge here and describe, therefore, them as evil. So many of the most influential people in the world of recent generations have this sordid and despicable, evil habit. And one of the realizations that occurred recently is when people try to determine or hypothesize what the whys and what fors are of how this came to be. And I mean, I certainly have sympathy for so many of us who naively and innocently think people would never do this, and they could never do this, and then why would they lie? Why would they lie could be the tombstone of so many innocent and naive people who cannot fathom the deception and the obsession with control that social and cultural engineers have, that they are willing to deceive about just about everything. And I say just about every. I should say almost anything, because I am really deliberate about how I'm using my language here, because when I get into the criticisms of saying everything is fake and gay, everything is theater, it's not everything, because that would then, because we're casting a spell on our reality, and there is shared reality. There are things that are truly real and authentic and organic and meaningful, and even if they are ethereal and intangible, love and courage and integrity and justice, these are things that cannot be measured. And so it's I'm doing my best to invite people to see things differently, and therefore choose language that is affirmative and does not totally dismantle our own structures of reality. So what occurs to me is that since so many people have this naivete where they would say, why would they lie about the moon landing, shape of the earth, slavery, founding of our nation, power structures, history of taxation, assassinations, public school, our health, what is a virus, what is cancer, can it be cured, all these things. And it can just be visited with healthy skepticism. And we really do not have good models of healthy skepticism. We now have very tribal-based skepticism where we're wary of other people's tribe depending on who they voted for or what they profess to be their ideology or their identity and their interests. And it's mostly just a rejection of, well, that can't be true. And to say you're wrong without specific examples and evidence and those people who make affirmative claims, the responsibility is on them to uphold those claims. I can falsify and I can show you how that's illogical or unreal or untrue, which, one of my favorite examples, of course, is the virus, because you cannot say that a virus has been isolated when there's a dozen different things propped up in that chemical soup, and then you try to pick one thing from there, to say nothing of what that environment creates. So that's always a great example as well of why that's highly illogical. And I think it's just wizardry. I think it's just deception anyway. So anyone making claims, the burden of proof is on them. And this is a claim I'm willing to put forth. It's more of my own assessment and impression of what the arc of this dark story has been when we look at these revelations about the habits of many powerful people and their subordinates and even their spouses or people. I mean, not everyone's a patsy. Not everyone's totally ignorant to what's going on. A lot of people are fully aware, and it's because of that. I don't want to dance around this point anymore. There was a prevailing hypothesis that a lot of this had to do with blackmail, as Jeffrey Epstein would be the middleman magician who would hold the cards for his masters. If it was fucking Israel or the royal family, the Jesuits, Masons, various governments, whomever, it almost doesn't matter, because I don't think that's the case. And I feel like my opinion on this has been formed and informed over time to where I can say that it's not that these people were being blackmailed, because blackmail connotes shame. That if that information were to get out, you would be ashamed and you feel like you would lose everything. And therefore, Jeffrey Epstein gets to pull some strings, and the people making him dance above him can say, well, this politician, now you have to be pro-war, and this politician, you have to be pro-abortion, and this politician, you have to vote for these reforms and represent these interests, and you have to be lockstep with us on this. Dr. Vandana Shiva, one of the inventors, I don't know if he's the sole inventor, but an inventor of email in its original days, has talked about the hive. That because these people have sometimes similar bloodlines, they go to the same schools, the same clubs, they're in the same environs together, they don't really need to have one meeting telling them all what to do. A lot of it is just in their survival mechanism. They're just read and react, and they'll just go. They like so many of us will just go along to get along. So I would offer, I would posit that there really is no shame. That these people are following their passions, their uninhibited interests in these dalliances with dark magic and sexual magic, and again preying upon people's energy. Maybe it's because other people told them that this was the way to achieve power and to play that game. And so also when you think about the networking of Jeffrey Epstein, the first powerful person that he threatened to blackmail or was going to blackmail, that person would alert their community and say, don't fuck with this Epstein guy. He's a jackass. He's a prick. He's got me under his thumb, and I won't tell you why, but you should stay away from him. No, they all connect with him. That web expands to include him, at least apparently, at least based on a lot of the information that we're getting. And so I think that there's a pride. I mean, I think that this is how these are the membership cards for a lot of these people. And so it doesn't become about blackmail then. They're just playing the game. And when you're playing the game of power, what you care about is power, the power that you can enact over or influence or force upon. I mean, so we have a false conception of power now, because real power, of course, does not come from how much money you have or how you can threaten people or control. Control and force are much more closely linked than what is real power. Real power is freedom and feeling like you are truly fearless and undaunted by threats against your life or your position or your status. It's your health and your vitality and your ability to access your third eye, your clear thinking, anything like that is what makes one truly powerful. And so these people are playing much more games of control and force. And when you're playing those games, truth and morality are so far from your purview that, I mean, of course, they don't care. I mean, they will deceive and conceal because they're not about truth. And as I said earlier, the truth is always a good thing. It's not that we, how can I say this? Truth is not always pure goodness. When we say I'm in pursuit of truth, it's just greater recognition, I'm on the path of enhancing, augmenting my awareness. How much wisdom and information can I receive in my field without overwhelming myself, without driving myself insane because I'm then doing too much of that truth. Again, it's just greater awareness. And so there's a gratitude right now that people are becoming more aware of the fact that these people, some of these people, are involved in this level of evil. And I think what's even though it's sort of a low bar here, this is a universal recognition, I believe, and I say universal meaning I believe people of all cultures will recognize that to prey upon young people, to say nothing of children, is a universally evil and deplorable act. So there's really no gray area with that. And it's because there is a sacredness and that innocence that for all times and cultures has been symbolized with youth, that it is this valuable and sacred experience that should be revered. It does have some reference. It doesn't mean we defer to the youth. It's just we have a certain level of respect and honor for that, especially when it comes to young women and the latent virility that is symbolized by a young woman, especially if she's not quite yet or is just on that threshold of being able to bring forth life. It deserves reverence. Of course, it's been, unfortunately, it has been degraded by just the creepy sex culture that we have now, that has been foisted upon us by social engineers. It didn't just happen. It didn't. See, this is the thing. It didn't come from us. And the fear that some people have when they are confronted with people they believe to be more powerful than them is the fear I reckon with is it's not fear of them, it's the fear of being like them. Are there ways in which I am predatory, controlling, dishonest, deceitful, leaving myself open to possession because I have vices, because I have weaknesses, because I'm willing to lie to myself if it makes me feel good and supports my own feeling of power? I mean, this is what I believe what I trust that we are called to do is visit this upon ourselves. Not in a guilt trip kind of way. You don't have to take that guilt trip. It's just this is part of greater awareness and truth. Is what is the truth of me? Am I lying to myself? The line between good and evil cuts through the heart of every person. So to feel like we don't have, maybe you don't feel like you have that impulse to sexually prey upon young men and women and coerce them and control them. There are ways of doing that. I mean, you might have, I'm just talking this out loud now, the way that we use our sexuality in relationship. Do we withhold it? Is it more of a weapon than a healing practice? Is it something that we don't have a lot of control of, and we feel guilt or shame around our impulses because we didn't really have healthy examples of sexuality or what it means to reserve that for one person? For men, a lot of it is just the ability to channel that instinct for procreation through our semen. How do we retain that for first and foremost ourselves, and then release it to or for a woman whom we love? And that really is what it's meant for. I mean, any time that we, and again, this is social engineering, cultural engineering, the Don Juan or the Casanova type character who is, I don't think promiscuous is just reserved for women, but loose with his seed. That's celebrated in a lot of ways, and that can be an alpha behavior. An alpha having multiple women. Not every guy's an alpha, by no means. I mean, that would destroy the social sexual hierarchy. But I know a lot of guys fancy that because that's a lot of what's been foisted upon us is you want to be like this. No, you protect your, for the man, it is our chi, our life force. We do have a creative seed within us, and we, especially when we're not engaged in the sexual act, are dedicating that to what we create with our lives. And that's been a profound shift for me, is to realize how unfathomably valuable, priceless even, that my life force energy is in the form of my semen, in the form of my seed. Because if it goes outside my body and it's really not, especially if it's not for a woman whom I love or would be willing to create a life with, then it is almost lost. I mean, just the idea of sexual release and relief is, I'm not saying everyone needs to be a monk about this. It's just we pick our spots. It cannot be constant loss, because that is it is a drain on our energy that we can otherwise preserve. So there's an inversion, of course, in the culture, which has then been, I think, magnified and bastardized by what is being revealed now. But I'll mention this again. We do not need to fear them. We can fear becoming like them, and use that fear to then turn it into ways of that we can mold ourselves and just hold ourselves to a higher standard, for sure, that we can be more vigilant with our own sense of truth and honesty and rightness. And I mean, that is the inside out health journey, is whatever goes on in between my ears and in between my rib cage and my sternum here, from my heart, and then all throughout the rest of my body, is mostly dictated by our emotional and spiritual life. And there really is no the place where I'm living right now is there really is no outside in fix. So the food quality, the water quality, I think that's just for balance. But when we are so imbalanced, and of course there's upgrades if people do not have the practices of choosing the best quality water, the best quality food, the best, getting fresh air, sunlight, all of those things. I just think of those as essentials and fundamentals now. So when we are invited via the pain teacher toward larger shifts, then the work very much is inside out. And because the more inputs we have, that's just, literally and physically, that's just more of a demand on our various systems of the body, the nervous system, the digestive system, the eliminative system, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the vestibular system, all of it. Vestibular being how we balance ourselves, our spatial awareness, and so much of that is what kind of space and harmony do we have within. And so I don't mean to make this such a health podcast. There is a disease that we are all part of. It's not, because these sins are going to be rationalized. There are already people saying, these girls are just barely legal, and they knew what they were doing. It's not like they were drugged and raped. They were clout chasing, and we've rationalized ourselves into every war and disease and unnatural way of life because all we rely on is the rational mind. And rational mind, like homunculus, which is this possessive force, this Wetiko mind virus. Homunculus is this alchemical image where it's this primordial force that can capture and consume a person and really conceals them from a relationship to God and spirit and life force with pure logic. There are, as many people have tried, some of the most genuinely brilliant minds and people in the history of the world have sought to disprove God and deny God, and they still don't. And hey, they might turn it right back on us and say, if you're claiming God, it's up to you, burden of proof and all that. And so hey, double-edged sword. I get it. It cuts both ways. And still, one of the great criticisms of atheism is you cannot. How are you going to deny something that doesn't exist? So they're caught in their own web there, as if they're going to rail against the existence of God. They're saying God doesn't exist. So find your way through that chasm of confusion right there. I, of course, trust in, since we, even though, it's humans creating life. There's just so much of life that is not mechanistic. It's not machinery. It's ever present. It is, eternal life is already here because it's perpetual. We don't know a world without life. Even death is just another door, as has been said. So I'll bring us home talking about this, that the people who are disciples of debt, destruction, and death, how are they going to win? What sort of, sure, you can have a game that is resulting in death, debt, and destruction. That's not winning. That's not life. That's not profit. Even by their own terms. How is there going to be profit from that? How is there going to be success? How's there going to be gain from that? I don't really think that's how it works. And plus, we, of course, can all resist that because we choose life, we choose relationship, we choose abundance. And so, I'm planting these seeds now, as we look ahead towards springtime, especially, that we are relinquishing so much of our power by thinking that these people are more powerful than us. Because if they have to rely on debt and deception and predatory black magic to feel that they're powerful, I feel like they've already lost the plot. I feel like the game is already slipping through their fingers, and that's the cliche, because it's true that the intensification of what we're going through collectively in the last several years is because of this vice grip that these people are trying to exert over the levers of control. And there are levels of levers of control. The financial system and the healthcare system and the, you could even say, the weather system. I mean, I was speaking about this the other day, that the idea that people, if it's the Jews or if it's, again, the government or the CIA or Mossad or MI5 or the 13 noble families or the Russians or the Chinese, whatever boogeyman you want to put behind the wheel of something like weather modification, is my instinct tells me that there is no precise dial for weather control. There is weather modification, there is environmental corruption, and it's not because you drove to work today, don't worry. It has much more to do with energetics and, how the electromagnetic frequencies of this realm can be manipulated. Even still, they can't dial up 16.38 inches of snow. No, there's so much out of their control, hence the vice grip. Of course, they cannot control people, even though they might feel like they have an algorithm on you based on your search history and based on your financial history and your personal history, as much as they know it. There's still no way of controlling what you will do, think, feel, believe, change next. And that is, I feel, immensely empowering. So to bring in the language piece, I'm getting back to Danny Katz's The Language of Betterarchy, and a couple more elements that I'll bring to your awareness here today is changing our language around absolutes. And Danny gives this great example as well. To go from saying politicians always lie, that's, I mean, what sort of despair language is that, to say that we've always been lied to by politicians? I'm going to give them more than the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them the benefit of trust that there have been earnest and honest expressions of change that they would like to see happen, even if it's change for the more powerful people or the more influential people in the world, to be of service. I mean, especially early on in these politicians' career, I don't know if everyone really starts out corrupt. So a shift can be, historically, politicians have been prone to lying, saying, we're never going to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's going to take some next level creativity to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict. So again, a lot of that is positive and affirmative language that brings progress to our worldview. And also this is getting away from both absolutes and hyperbole, which are, I think, two pitfalls in our lexicon and our daily parlance that is rife with opportunity for upgrades. Because, again, to say everything is fucked or everyone is asleep, no one understands, things are never going to change, nothing is going to change. People are saying that right now. Nothing's going to happen to these perpetrators and these villains in the Epstein files. Nothing. You don't believe in karma. You don't believe that there will be some measure of justice. I mean, thankfully, this is where I'm grateful for my evolving spiritual practices, is that I have a belief in the tenet that many times perpetrators become victims and victims become perpetrators. So and the most classic example of this is often what we see with the Jewish community. And this is not all Jews. This is some influential leaders in the Jewish community that, because of their liability shield, because of their victimhood, I'm not even saying victim mentality. I mean, whatever we believe was done to them, when they have been victimized, when they have been victims, that they then go mete out violence and control and coercion against other people. And that really is that karmic wheel of victim becoming perpetrator and perpetrator becoming victim. So there is a scenario in the next life of a Jeffrey Epstein or anyone like that where they will be born as a young woman who is trafficked and controlled. And that really is a principle that I think has been proven. I mean, I think there's merit to that experience, and it's not ours to expect anything around that. It's just that, you know, we're shifting the language, which is how we frame our world, how we describe the world we see, and then becomes a reality. If we say everything is fucked, no one gets it, nothing's going to change, then so be it. Then we've concretized our reality for ourselves. And so that's absolute and hyperbole as well. All politicians, or you know, I've said it a million times. You know, I've always been like this. I mean, that just bring your attention. It's your challenge for today that I would invite you to accept, is being more specific and personal and local with our language, because that really is, I think, fertile ground for just greater self-awareness and therefore greater world awareness. And self-awareness is of course, we are the most potent filter for how anything in the world meets us. What will you do with this information? I mean, will you become more fearful and hateful and judgmental, or will you choose something else? Will you choose to say, okay, I'm more aware of the darkness and evil in the world, so instead of letting that consume me, I choose more light. I will act with more lightness and courage and love as the remedy. Are you committed to healing? I mean, that really is, when I think of my purpose in this life, I am committed to healing. I've had way too much fun healing myself to stifle that impulse that I have. It feels truly organic and really just boundless for me, that there is a healing, which, again, only for myself. It's not that I'm going to heal other people. I will embody healing and vitality and resilience, and then share whatever I can with people. And if they choose to receive what I share, then that's how we circulate even more energy. So this is an invitation to seek and create more light, and not burden ourselves and our perspective with absolutes and hyperbole, because that's just occurring to me now. More specific, personal, local language as the remedy, because that puts us as the heroes and heroines of our story. And victim consciousness, believing in our powerlessness, just means the end of the story. That's really it. I mean, we lose the plot, we lose the heroic arc if we surrender to victim consciousness. And I appreciate that frame of victim consciousness, not victim mentality or victimhood. Victim consciousness. Consciousness is there are so many levels to consciousness, and it's not necessarily linear or hierarchical, that someone is more conscious than you. It's just different. And there are so many nuanced, opaque lenses that we can put on to shift our consciousness. And it's usually, I would say, mostly experiences, an experience that will invite you to shift your consciousness. And so experience, of course, is highly personal as well, as although we do have to, we are called to, just as best we can seek higher or different levels of consciousness, because that's life. I mean, if we only have the consciousness and the perspective of a child, which many of us do, and there's different levels to that. I know I have some childish tendencies as well with the ways in which I look at things, and I'm actively moving through that because I feel the call to do so. And just it enriches my life when I have a more mature and moral and for more alliteration, manly or masculine perspective on things, I have feminine perspective as well, then I just have more fun. I mean, there's more levity to life. There's mystery, and still then I get a better relationship with my intuition of how I can sort through whatever's in front of me. And I was reminded of this terrific parallel between tennis and life, and it's one of the reasons why I'm actively compiling so many different useful metaphors for tennis and life. And it's that you have maybe 16, 20, 25, 30 seconds between points to regroup and say, it's a new point. The outcome is uncertain. I will play it the best I can. And that's this inhale, exhale rhythm that we're all in right now is, well, what comes next? Are we going to play the point just like the last point with fear and doubt and uncertainty and hesitation and ego and worry and scarcity? Or do we slap ourselves on the thigh and say, let's fucking go. Let's get after it. Let's go win. Let's go be fearless. Let's attack. Let's be confident and trusting and enthusiastic and compassionate and excited and go play the point differently. And then keep rolling with the next. And you play it great and a bad bounce or something takes a turn and you don't win it, then you learn and you still embrace confidence and energy and enthusiasm to go to the next. So that's my riff and my rant for today. And I'm mostly just impatient and excited for the rest of what I get to do with today, which I'll speak about another time. So I've been able to walk myself through an energy shift with this because when I first encountered a lot of the darkness that is now being delivered to people's awareness, it's a heaviness, it's a burden. And then my own experience with training against burdens and resistance is you develop a strength to be able to bear that and then move it to the side and continue on your path. And so do your best to let this obstacle be a stepping stone where you embrace another level of consciousness, where you can look at this and stare evil right in the face and say, this is not what I choose for my life. I do not consent to this level of sin and death and destruction. I will choose otherwise. I will choose wisdom. I will choose myself and my life and my abundance and continue to invest in that. So make your investments today in yourself and the wealth of your health. Please get outside. Thankfully, it is where I am a sunny and blue, cold day. And still, there's plenty to invest your attention and intention in that does not need to be compromised by the darkness. That stuff has happened and is happening currently, and we have so many parallel realities that are truly real to us, if only to us, that we can then mesh with our collective reality and unite our mutual pursuit of life and love and success and abundance and healing, and let that be the wave that we all ride together, not being torn asunder by those who would like to see us drown in debt and despair. I think it's not even an option. I think it's not even a choice. I think the choice is clear. That's why we develop discernment and intuition, and the more that you tune into that for yourself, the richer your life will be. So I wish you that rich and fulfilling life that is captained exclusively by you, and I'm grateful that you do spare your attention and awareness to receive my thoughts and my challenges, and I'll keep bringing them to you because this is how I love to create. It's one way that I love to create. So can't help myself really. And until next time, I'm signing off as Tomfoolery, and we'll continue to circulate all this energy that is for life.